Police Chief Mark Nickel. Now, I asked everybody to give me a bio, and some did better than others at this task. Mark gave me his resume, so I'm not sure if he's looking for another job or whatever, but he's certainly well qualified for his present position, let me just say that. Mark has had 10 years of experience in law enforcement prior to coming to Roseburg in 1984, where he served as a police officer, police corporal, police sergeant, and currently the chief of police since August of 2003. He is a 1981 graduate of the University of Wyoming with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Administration of Justice. So University of Wyoming, that would make you a cowboy, okay. He's also a 2004 graduate of the Police Executive Academy. His wife, Kathleen, I saw her earlier, they have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren, and he tells me 1 on the way. So with that, Mark Nickel, I give you Mark Nickel.
I'd fixed this microphone. It's actually attached to a lamp because I didn't want to hold it in my hand. There was some tragic news that came from North last week, and I just really appreciated if everybody kind of keep in their minds and prayers the 4 officers that were killed up in Lakewood last week. It was a shock to all of us, even though it's a couple hundred miles away, but it really brings home the fact that, we're all kind of mortal, even though sometimes our uniforms don't make us look mortal. So, when I was writing this speech the other day, Yvonne asked me, my assistant, she asked me how long it was, and I said, well, it's 7 pages. And she got this funny look on her face, and she said, you're on a time limit. And I said, don't worry, it's triple spaced and 16 font, so we're okay. I remember back in 1984 when I first started walking up the stairs to the old police building at 774 Southeast Rose with my training officer, Lou Bowler. I tell this story all the time. And I asked him if he thought we'd ever get a new building considering the condition of that one that we'd been in since 1959 or 1960. The old city hall, which housed the department for a generation, had been destroyed in the blast, and the city hastily converted a dealership or auto dealership / repair building into a combined police and fire facility. It was an interesting setup, probably barely adequate for the department when it was opened up, and continued in its inadequacy until we moved out in 1996. It had a jail that was closed in 1985 because of a lawsuit claiming that it wasn't a safe place to put prisoners. Yeah. A locker room designed for 15 lockers but holding 30. A dispatch center that closed when we started contracting that service with the county, and that was in about 1986. Had falling down ceilings, plugged plumbing fixtures, poor lighting and electrical circuits, no air conditioning, which was a big issue for me. So as Lou and I are walking up these shaky stairs in the front, he looks at me and he says, son, I started working in this building in 1964, and I will retire out of here. So will you. Well, Lou was only half right. He did, but I won't. In 1993, thanks to then Chief John Hodson, we were able to move out of the Rose Street building and onto a building on Lower Jackson. It was rented from the county. It was immensely better than where we'd come from, but certainly not a long-term answer to our needs. As our department changed, we quickly recognized that even our new facility would be inadequate within a few years. In addition to basic infrastructure problems, the Jackson Street building flooded about every 2 years. In fact, just last spring, we got flooded out twice in a single week. And that dramatically illustrated to me that location and that building were not well suited for emergency services. Now, not very long after I became chief, then interim manager Dan Huff actually suggested to me that we might start looking at some options to renting our quarters. At that point, I thought there wasn't any freaking way that we were going to build a new facility, but we started looking at some possibilities. And shortly after that, Jim Johnson became our interim manager. And we really began exploring some funding options. And with the support of the city council, we really got serious. Interestingly, I couldn't convince any of my employees that it was really going to happen because we'd been promised so many times over the years that we were going to get a new building, and up to that point, we hadn't really seen any results. It wasn't until after they started raising the walls that people actually started convincing themselves that yes, in fact, we were going to be moving. So the rest is history. Excuse me. I won't say that it was an easy process, but it certainly was an interesting one, and I'm so glad that I was able to be involved. There aren't very many police chiefs around, maybe none, maybe very few, who can actually claim that they built a brand new facility, and I'm so grateful that I'm one of them. It wouldn't be possible to thank everyone who was involved in the project, but I would like to take just a few more minutes to thank some folks whose help made this project such a great experience for me. If I miss any deserving people, I apologize. But first, I'd like to thank Jim Johnson, whose vision and hard work in getting funding and his involvement in the early stage development of this project really made the hardest part a lot easier for us and made the whole thing possible. My boss, the guy that just spoke before me, believe it or not, Eric Swanson, whose continued support throughout the ensuing 4 years kept things going even during some very difficult financial times. Convincing people that the future of public safety deserved a high priority in Roseburg wasn't always an easy job, but he never wavered from his commitment to us. Jim Macarello was mentioned earlier. He is the most patient man on the face of the earth. He kept everyone involved in the construction, to include the contractors and the owners, on task and more or less on time, while patiently having to deal with all of the dumb questions and comments from us. Jim did a great job holding everything and everyone together and was terrific to work with. He deserves a lot of the credit for the completion of this building. Thanks to Carrie Turner and Kurt Wilson from Pivot Architecture, who guided us through the very difficult design process and came up with such a beautiful building. Then they continued to work with us to get us all the comforts of home installed. So that's why you see beds up in the fire department when you take your tour. Harmon Construction did a magnificent job getting it all together and building something that we are all so proud of, and working as hard as they did, truly making this a community-involved project. We've got some special pieces of art adorning the exterior of this building, as Eric mentioned, thanks to the generosity of the tribe and the talents of Creative Images. You might like it or you might hate it, but it does make the facility more than a building. And as Eric mentioned, I've had so many comments of people who absolutely hate it, and I've talked to people who absolutely love it. But the thing is, people are talking about it, and I think that's the important thing when you're talking about art. I'd also like to thank all the department heads for their understanding and their indulgence during this somewhat stressful period. Your support is greatly appreciated, and to my staff members who were involved in this process from the very beginning and whose input was invaluable, developing plans through construction and right down through the move-in. They continue even now, making sure that everything works and developing processes and procedures we never had to deal with before to make sure that we function smoothly and legally, literally to go where no Roseburg Police Department has ever gone before. Jerry, Pat, Aaron, and Yvonne, and everybody in the department who pitched in and worked so hard, thank you for your time, your effort, and absolute commitment in making sure that we have a smoothly running state-of-the-art facility. And this in addition to the regular jobs of running a police department. I'm very proud of all of you. I'd also like to thank members of the city councils, plural, who recognized the need and supported this project from inception to completion. Supported us by making some very difficult financial decisions and commitments, and sometimes not very popular ones. You have demonstrated how much you value the public safety professionals who represent you in Roseburg. Finally, believe it or not, I'd like to thank the citizens of Roseburg who gave all of us the opportunity to make this project a reality, and who continue to support us in good times and bad. I appreciate and thank you all for being here and sharing in this great day for Roseburg. Thanks.